The morning it happened, the lake was so still, it looked like glass. I remember thinking that as I stood at my bedroom window, coffee mug warming my hands, watching the mist rise off the water. It was 6:47 a.m., I'd checked my phone, and the sun was just beginning to paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. This was supposed to be a relaxing weekend, a family getaway at our lake house in the Adirondacks. Just me, my son Marcus, his wife Vanessa, and their 2 kids, my grandchildren Emma and Lucas, ages 8 and 5. My name is Ruth Holloway. I'm 64 years old, widowed for 3 years, and I'd spent the last decade building this lake house from the ground up. After my husband Tom died, this place became my sanctuary. Every plank of wood, every window, every stone in the fireplace, I'd chosen them all. This house was mine in a way nothing else had ever been, and I'd been so happy when Marcus called 2 weeks ago. "Mom, can we come up this weekend? The kids have been asking about the lake." Of course I'd said yes. Family was everything, even if Vanessa and I had our differences. But as I stood there that morning, watching her walk down to the dock in the pre-dawn light, dragging something heavy behind her, I had no idea that in the next 3 hours, everything I thought I knew about my son's marriage would unravel. And what I'd find in that lake would make me question whether I'd ever really known Vanessa at all. Before we continue, if you're already hooked by this story, do me a favor. Hit that like button right now. And if you love stories about family secrets and shocking revelations, subscribe and turn on notifications. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. Now, back to that morning at the lake. I almost didn't see her at first. The lake house has floor-to-ceiling windows facing the water. Tom had insisted on them, said he wanted to live inside the view. And from my second-floor bedroom, I had a perfect vantage point of the entire property. The dock, the boathouse, the rocky beach, all of it. Vanessa was wearing dark clothing, black leggings, a black hoodie. Even though it was July and already warm, she moved quickly, purposefully, like someone who didn't want to be seen. She was pulling a suitcase, not a small carry-on, a full-sized, hard-shell suitcase, the expensive kind with 4 wheels. It was clearly heavy. I could tell by the way she leaned back slightly as she pulled it, by the way the wheels carved lines in the dewy grass. My first thought was innocent enough. Maybe she's reorganizing, putting winter clothes in storage. But then, why take them to the dock? I watched as she maneuvered the suitcase down the wooden planks. Our dock extends about 40 feet into the lake, and at the end, there's a small platform where we keep the kayaks and paddleboards. Vanessa dragged the suitcase all the way to the end. Then she looked around. That's when my stomach dropped. The way she looked, quick, furtive glances left and right, checking to see if anyone was watching. That wasn't the behavior of someone doing something innocent. I stepped back from the window slightly, afraid she might look up and see me. She knelt down beside the suitcase, and even from this distance, I could see her hands were shaking. She fumbled with something, the lock, maybe, and then she pushed the suitcase right into the water. I watched it sink. The lake is deep where our dock is, probably 30 feet. The suitcase bobbed on the surface for just a moment, then tilted and disappeared beneath the dark water. Vanessa stood there for a long moment, staring at the spot where it had vanished. Then she wiped her hands on her leggings, turned, and walked quickly back to the house. I stood frozen at my window, heart pounding. What the hell had I just witnessed? Let me tell you about Vanessa Chen. She married my son 6 years ago in a ceremony that cost more than most people's houses. Vanessa came from money, old money, the kind that doesn't talk about money. Her father owned a commercial real estate empire in Manhattan. Her mother sat on charity boards and wore Chanel to breakfast. Vanessa herself was stunning, half Chinese, half French, with the kind of bone structure that made photographers stop her on the street. She'd worked briefly as a model before going to Columbia for her MBA. Now she was a brand consultant for luxury companies, whatever that meant. She was polished, sophisticated, always impeccably dressed, even at the lake house. While the rest of us wore old jeans and sweatshirts, Vanessa wore designer athleisure and looked like she'd stepped out of a yoga retreat catalog. And she'd never liked me. Oh, she was polite. Always polite. "Ruth, this salmon is delicious. Ruth, thank you so much for having us. Ruth, you're so generous with your time." But there was ice beneath the courtesy, a distance she maintained that said, very clearly, "You're not my family, you're Marcus's mother." There's a difference. I'd tried, especially in the early years. I'd invited her to lunch, asked about her work, complimented her style. She'd responded with pleasant nothingness. Conversations that went nowhere, deflections dressed up as answers. Marcus didn't see it, or maybe he chose not to. When I gently mentioned that Vanessa seemed distant, he'd gotten defensive. "Mom, she's just private. Not everyone is as open as our family." So I'd backed off, smiled at holidays, played with my grandchildren, kept my observations to myself. But now, standing at my window, I had to ask myself, who was Vanessa Chen? Really? And what was in that suitcase? I didn't go downstairs right away. I needed time to think, to process what I'd seen, to figure out what, if anything, I should do about it. By the time I made it to the kitchen, it was almost 8. Marcus was already up making pancakes for the kids. Emma and Lucas were at the table, still in their pajamas, arguing about whether dinosaurs or sharks were cooler. "Morning, Mom," Marcus grinned at me. He looked so much like his father. Same dark hair, same easy smile, same optimism that assumed everyone meant well. "Want some pancakes? I'm making my famous triple chocolate chip." "Sounds wonderful," I said, trying to sound normal. Vanessa emerged from the guest room a few minutes later, looking fresh and composed in white linen pants and a silk tank top. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She showed no signs of having been up before dawn, dragging suitcases into lakes. "Good morning, Ruth," she said pleasantly. "Did you sleep well?" I looked at her carefully, searching for what? Guilt? Anxiety? But her face was serene, untroubled. "Very well," I lied. "And you?" "Like a baby." She poured herself coffee, added exactly 1 teaspoon of sugar, stirred precisely 3 times. "There's something about the lake air. It's so peaceful here." Peaceful. The word hung in the air between us. I watched her throughout breakfast. The way she cut Emma's pancakes into perfect squares. The way she laughed at Lucas's joke about a farting dinosaur. The way she touched Marcus's shoulder as she passed behind him, casual and affectionate. She was the picture of a devoted wife and mother, and she'd just dumped a suitcase in the lake. After breakfast, Marcus took the kids down to the water to look for frogs. Vanessa said she had work emails to catch up on. I volunteered to clean up the kitchen. As soon as I was alone, I pulled out my phone. I Googled, "What are innocent reasons to put a suitcase in a lake?" The search results were not helpful, mostly just links to crime dramas and true crime podcasts. I tried again. Why would someone sink luggage in water? Better, sort of. The top results talked about disposing of evidence, hiding stolen property, concealing illegal substances, getting rid of items that couldn't be thrown in regular trash. None of these options made me feel better. I looked out the kitchen window. From here, I could see the dock where the suitcase had gone in. The water was calm, revealing nothing. I had 3 options. Option 1, confront Vanessa directly. Ask her what was in the suitcase and why she put it in the lake. Option 2, tell Marcus what I'd seen and let him deal with his wife. Option 3, find out what was in that suitcase myself. Option 1 felt dangerous. If Vanessa was hiding something serious, confronting her might make things worse. She might lie, or she might panic and do something even more drastic. Option 2 felt like betrayal. Marcus would defend his wife. He'd probably think I was making something out of nothing, that I'd misinterpreted what I'd seen. It would create family drama without any evidence to back up my concerns, which left option 3. I needed to know what was in that suitcase, and there was only one way to find out. You want to rent scuba equipment? The kid behind the counter at Lakeside Adventures looked at me like I'd asked to rent a rocket ship. Yes, I said firmly, for today, this afternoon. Ma'am, do you have your PADI certification? I did, actually. Tom and I had gotten certified 15 years ago on a trip to Cozumel. We'd planned to do more diving, but life had gotten in the way. Then Tom got sick, and diving trips fell off the priority list. I pulled out my certification card. The kid examined it skeptically. This was issued in 2010, he said. Scuba skills don't expire. I countered. It's like riding a bike. It's really not, he muttered, but he started pulling out equipment anyway. You need a wetsuit? The lake is warm enough in July. Not at 30 feet, it's not. You're looking at maybe 60 degrees down there. You'll want the wetsuit. 30 minutes later, I left with a full equipment rental. BCD, regulator, tank, wetsuit, fins, mask. The kid had made me sign about 17 liability waivers. Stay shallow, he advised as I loaded everything into my car. And don't dive alone. That's rule number 1. Of course not, I lied. Okay. I need to pause for just a second. If you're sitting there thinking, Ruth, this is insane, go ahead and hit that subscribe button because this story is about to get even crazier. And drop a comment telling me, would you dive into a lake to investigate your daughter-in-law? I want to know. All right, let's get back to Ruth's underwater mission. I got back to the lake house around 2 p.m. Marcus and the kids were at the public beach a few miles away. They'd invited me along, but I'd claimed a headache. Vanessa had driven into town saying she needed to pick up some things from the grocery store. I had maybe 90 minutes. I changed into my swimsuit, pulled on the wetsuit over it. It took me 10 minutes just to get the thing on. Apparently, I'd underestimated how much harder that gets at 64, but eventually, I managed. I carried the equipment down to the dock in 2 trips, my heart hammering. This was crazy. The kid at the dive shop was right. You shouldn't dive alone. It was dangerous. And what if I didn't find anything? What if the suitcase had drifted or sunk deeper than I could safely dive? But I thought about Vanessa's face that morning, the furtive way she'd looked around, the deliberate way she'd pushed that suitcase into the water. Something was in there, something she desperately wanted to hide, and I needed to know what. I strapped on the BCD, checked the regulator, tested the airflow. Everything seemed to be working. I put on the fins, mask, and weight belt. Then I sat at the edge of the dock, took 3 deep breaths, and rolled backward into the water. The cold hit me immediately, even through the wetsuit. The kid had been right. The surface of the lake might be warm, but a few feet down, the temperature dropped dramatically. I could feel it seeping through the neoprene, making my muscles contract. I oriented myself, letting my eyes adjust to the underwater world. The lake wasn't murky, exactly, but visibility was limited, maybe 15 feet. Shafts of sunlight penetrated from above, illuminating particles suspended in the water. Algae, sediment, tiny organisms I couldn't name. I descended slowly, equalizing the pressure in my ears every few feet. The bottom of the dock pilings came into view, covered in slime and algae. Small fish darted away from me, silver flashes in the green-tinted water. 20 feet. 25 feet. The bottom began to emerge from the gloom, rocky, with patches of aquatic plants, old logs, probably from trees that had fallen into the lake decades ago. And there, about 10 feet to my left, I saw it. The suitcase. It had landed on its side against a large rock. The hard shell was dark blue. I could see that now, even in the filtered underwater light. One corner had cracked on impact and the handle was bent. I swam toward it, my fins stirring up sediment from the bottom. My hands were shaking as I reached for it, not from the cold, but from adrenaline, from fear of what I might find. The suitcase had combination locks, Both were still engaged. Whatever was inside, Vanessa hadn't bothered to lock it before dumping it. Or maybe she had locked it, and the impact had broken the locks. I tried one of the latches. It opened. My breath came faster, bubbles streaming from my regulator as I lifted the lid. At first, I couldn't process what I was seeing. Papers, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, sealed in waterproof plastic bags, documents of some kind. And beneath them, more plastic bags containing... My blood ran cold. Cash. Stacks and stacks of $100 bills wrapped in plastic. Passports, at least 4 of them, all with Vanessa's photo but different names. A burner phone, a small black notebook, and something else, something that made my heart stop completely. A handgun. I closed the suitcase. My mind was racing, thoughts tumbling over each other too fast to catch. Cash, fake passports, a gun. What the hell was Vanessa involved in? I tried to lift the suitcase, but it was too heavy, especially in the water with all the equipment I was wearing. I'd need help to get it to the surface. Or I could photograph everything. Yes, evidence. I needed evidence before I surfaced, before I did anything else. I opened the suitcase again and pulled out my underwater camera. I'd had the presence of mind to bring the waterproof GoPro we used for snorkeling with the grandkids. I photographed everything. The cash, the passports, making sure to get clear shots of all the names and photos, the gun, the notebook. I flipped through it underwater, photographing pages that seemed to contain lists of numbers and names. The documents were harder. They were in plastic bags and the writing was small. But I did my best, taking dozens of photos from different angles. Then I put everything back, closed the suitcase, and marked its location using my dive computer's GPS feature. I began my ascent, being careful not to rise too quickly. My mind was still reeling. Who was Vanessa Chen? And what kind of danger had my son married into? I surfaced near the dock, pulled off my mask, and checked my phone. 20 minutes until Vanessa was due back from town. Marcus and the kids wouldn't return for at least an hour. I hauled myself onto the dock, significantly harder than it used to be, and stripped off the equipment as fast as I could. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely undo the BCD straps. I wrapped everything in a towel, carried it to my car, and shoved it in the trunk. Then I ran inside, got my laptop, and uploaded the GoPro footage. The photos were clear enough. I could see the passport names. Vanessa Chen, her real name, Michelle Wong, Lisa Beaumont, Sarah Zhang. Different names, same face. I zoomed in on the notebook pages, lists of what looked like account numbers, names I didn't recognize, dates, dollar amounts, large dollar amounts, 6 figures, 7 figures, and at the bottom of one page in Vanessa's handwriting, transfer complete. Moscow contact confirmed. Moscow. I sat back, staring at my laptop screen. This wasn't shoplifting. This wasn't an affair or a secret gambling problem. This was something much, much bigger. I heard a car pulling up the driveway. Vanessa was back. I closed my laptop and shoved it under my bed, pulled on dry clothes, ran a brush through my hair, checked my reflection. I looked pale, shaky, but that could be attributed to my headache. By the time Vanessa came through the door carrying grocery bags, I was in the kitchen pretending to read a magazine. "Ruth, you're up!" She smiled warmly. "Feeling better?" "Much better," I managed. "Just needed some rest." "I bought ingredients for my special pasta tonight," she said, unpacking groceries. "The kids love it, and I thought it would be nice to cook for you. You do so much for us." I watched her move around my kitchen, putting away items with the comfortable familiarity of family. She looked completely normal, relaxed, happy even. How was she doing this? How was she standing there, making small talk about pasta, when 30 feet under the lake was evidence of, what, money laundering, espionage? I didn't even know what to call it. "That's very thoughtful," I said. She turned to me, and for just a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes, something cold and calculating, but then she smiled and it was gone. "We're family," she said simply. "It's what family does." That night, after dinner, the pasta had been delicious, which somehow made everything worse. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I had 3 options again, but they were different now. Option 1, confront Vanessa, show her the photos, demand an explanation. Dangerous. If she was involved in something criminal, she might panic, she might run, or worse, she might do something to protect her secrets. Option 2, tell Marcus, show him the evidence and let him decide what to do about his wife. This would destroy him. Marcus loved Vanessa. He'd built a life with her, had children with her. Learning that his wife had a secret identity, multiple secret identities, would shatter him. And what if he didn't believe me? What if he thought I'd manufactured the evidence because I'd never liked Vanessa? Option 3, go to the police. This was the right thing to do. I knew it was. Whatever Vanessa was involved in, it was clearly illegal. The fake passports alone were a federal crime. Add in the unexplained cash, the Moscow contact, the gun. But going to the police meant Marcus would find out anyway. It meant Emma and Lucas would see their mother arrested. It meant the family I'd tried to protect would explode anyway. I picked up my phone and stared at it for a long time. Then I dialed. "Sheriff's Department. This is Deputy Martinez. How can I help you?" "My name is Ruth Holloway," I said quietly. "I need to report. I'm not sure what to call it, but I found something in the lake, something that involves my daughter-in-law, and I think she might be in serious trouble." "Okay, before we get to what happens next, I need you to do me a huge favor. Smash that like button if you think Ruth did the right thing by calling the police, and hit subscribe because stories like this, real family drama, shocking twists, justice being served, that's what this channel is all about. Drop a comment with your prediction. What do you think is really going on with Vanessa? All right, here's what happened when the police arrived. Sheriff Tom Hendricks arrived at the lake house 90 minutes later, along with 2 deputies and a dive team. I'd asked them to come after Marcus took the kids into town for ice cream. Vanessa had stayed behind, claiming she had more work to do. She was on the porch when the sheriff's cars pulled up, 3 vehicles with lights but no sirens. I watched her face carefully. For just a second, less than a second really, her expression froze. Fear, maybe, or calculation. Then it smoothed into polite confusion. "Officers, is everything all right?" She stood up from her laptop, concerned and welcoming. Sheriff Hendricks was in his 50s with graying hair and the weathered face of someone who'd spent decades dealing with lake town problems. Drunk boaters, lost hikers, tourists breaking noise ordinances. This was probably not what he'd expected when he got my call. "Mrs. Chen?" he asked. "Yes? I'm Sheriff Hendricks. This is Deputy Martinez and Deputy Wong. We need to ask you some questions." "Of course. What's this about?" She looked past him to me, standing in the doorway. "Ruth, what's going on?" "Mrs. Chen," the sheriff continued, "we have reason to believe you disposed of property in the lake this morning, specifically a suitcase. Can you tell us about that?" Vanessa's face went very still. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Ma'am, we have a witness who saw you drag a suitcase to the dock at approximately 6:50 a.m. and push it into the water." "That's ridiculous." But her voice had changed, harder, colder. "Who told you that?" "I did," I said from the doorway. She turned to look at me, and the expression on her face made my blood run cold. It wasn't anger, it was something much worse. It was the look of someone who'd just had their cover blown. "Ruth," she said softly, "you have no idea what you've done." The dive team went down while we waited on the porch. Vanessa sat in one of the Adirondack chairs, flanked by deputies. She'd stopped protesting, stopped explaining. She just sat there, silent, staring out at the lake. I sat as far from her as possible, trying not to shake. "Ma'am?" Deputy Martinez approached me. "Can you show me the photos you took?" I pulled out my phone and opened the GoPro app. Together, we scrolled through the evidence: the cash, the passports, the gun, the notebook. His expression grew more serious with each image. "Sheriff," he called, "you need to see this." Sheriff Hendricks came over, looked at my phone, and immediately got on his radio. "I need FBI contacted. Federal agents. Yes, right now." FBI. "Mrs. Holloway," the sheriff said. His tone completely changed from casual local law enforcement to something much more serious. "I need you to tell me everything, every detail about Mrs. Chen's behavior. How long have you known her? Has she ever mentioned her work, travel, contacts?" I told him everything I could remember. 6 years of marriage. Vanessa's vague job as a brand consultant. Her wealthy family. The way she traveled frequently for work, sometimes gone for weeks at a time. "Where does she travel?" he asked. "I don't know exactly. Europe, I think. Asia. Marcus mentioned Moscow once, and Hong Kong." The sheriff and deputy exchanged glances. 20 minutes later, the dive team surfaced. They were carrying the suitcase. They opened the suitcase on the dock, and even from the porch, I could see the deputies' faces change as they cataloged the contents. Sheriff Hendricks made more calls. Lots of calls. Vanessa watched silently. "Mrs. Chen," the sheriff said finally, "I'm placing you under arrest on suspicion of—" "Money laundering," Vanessa interrupted. Her voice was calm, resigned. "That's what this is. Money laundering and wire fraud. Possibly tax evasion, depending on how creative you want to get." Everyone went still. "You're confessing?" Deputy Martinez asked, clearly surprised. Vanessa laughed bitterly. "What's the point of denying it? Ruth photographed everything. The passports, the cash, the account records. It's all there." "Why?" I found my voice. "Vanessa, why? Your family has money. You don't need—" "My family cut me off 3 years ago," she said, turning to look at me. "Did Marcus ever tell you that?" "No, of course he didn't. Because I never told him." I stared at her. "My father found out I'd been borrowing from the family business, redirecting funds. He gave me an ultimatum: stop and repay everything, or be cut off completely. I chose to keep going, so he cut me off. But your lifestyle, the house, the cars, the private school for the kids, all funded by my real work," Vanessa said. "I've been moving money for certain clients. People who need funds transferred in ways that don't attract attention. I create shell companies, set up accounts, move money through various countries. It's quite lucrative, actually." "You're a criminal," I whispered. "I'm a facilitator," she corrected. "I don't hurt anyone. I just help people move their money." "Drug money?" Deputy Martinez asked. "Organized crime?" Vanessa shrugged. "I don't ask. That's the whole point." "And the gun?" Sheriff Hendricks asked. For the first time, Vanessa looked uncomfortable. "Protection. One of my clients got aggressive when a transfer didn't go through quickly enough. I learned to be prepared." "Does Marcus know any of this?" I had to ask. Vanessa's face softened slightly. "No, Marcus thinks I work for luxury brands, that my family still supports us. He has no idea." "Why tell me now?" I asked. "Why confess?" She looked at me with something that might have been respect. "Because you were smart enough to figure it out, and brave enough to dive into a lake to prove it." She paused. "And because you're right, I am a criminal, and I'm tired of running." The worst part was waiting for Marcus to return with the kids. The FBI arrived first. 2 agents in dark suits who looked like they'd stepped out of a TV show. They took Vanessa into custody, read her rights, and loaded her into an unmarked car. Before they took her away, she asked to speak to me privately. The FBI agents allowed it, though they stood close enough to hear. "Ruth," Vanessa said quietly, "I know you hate me. I know I've never been the daughter-in-law you wanted, but please," her voice cracked, "please take care of Emma and Lucas. Don't let them think their mother is a monster. You put them in danger, I said, my voice shaking. Those clients of yours, if they'd found out about your family, about Marcus and the kids. They didn't know, Vanessa interrupted. I kept them separate, always. That was my one rule. Family was off limits. You still lied to them, to Marcus, to everyone. I know. She looked down. Tell Marcus. Tell him I'm sorry. Tell him he deserves better. Tell him to find someone good, someone honest. She laughed bitterly. Someone like you. Then they took her away. 30 minutes later, Marcus pulled up with the kids, both of them hyped up on sugar and excitement. Grandma, we saw a turtle, Lucas ran to me. It was this big. And I got mint chocolate chip, Emma added. Dad let me get 2 scoops. Marcus was smiling, relaxed, happy. Mom, you should have come. The sunset over the lake was beautiful. He stopped. What's wrong? Sheriff Hendricks stepped forward. Mr. Chen, I'm Sheriff Hendricks. I need to speak with you privately. I watched my son's face change as the sheriff explained. Confusion first, then disbelief, then a pain so deep it made me want to cry. Where's Vanessa? He asked, his voice hollow. Federal custody, Sheriff Hendricks said. She's been arrested. Can I see her? Not tonight, but an agent will be by tomorrow to explain everything and answer your questions. Marcus turned to me and I saw betrayal in his eyes. You called them. You had my wife arrested. Marcus, you never liked her. His voice rose. You've been waiting for something like this, haven't you? Waiting for proof that she wasn't good enough for me. That's not... What am I supposed to tell the kids? He was crying now. What do I tell Emma and Lucas about why their mother is gone? I had no answer. He gathered the kids, both confused and frightened by their father's tears, and left. I stood alone in my lake house, the place that was supposed to be my sanctuary, and wondered if I'd just destroyed my family to save it. The next 3 months were a nightmare. The FBI investigation revealed that Vanessa had been moving money for various criminal organizations for at least 5 years, drug cartels, cyber criminals, even a suspected human trafficking ring. She'd set up dozens of shell companies across multiple countries. She'd moved over $40 million in illegal funds. She'd taken a percentage of every transaction, which explained how she'd maintained her lifestyle after her family cut her off. Marcus was investigated too. The FBI needed to confirm he hadn't been involved, hadn't known about any of it. They interviewed him for hours, went through his finances, his emails, his phone records. In the end, they cleared him. Marcus had been exactly what he appeared to be, a loving husband who'd been completely deceived, but the damage was done. Emma and Lucas were confused, heartbroken. Their mother had disappeared, and no one would tell them why. Marcus finally explained, in child-appropriate terms, that Mommy had made some bad choices and had to go away for a while. How long? Emma asked. Marcus looked at me helplessly. The FBI agents had told us Vanessa was facing 20 to 30 years in federal prison. A long time, sweetheart, he said finally. Marcus quit his job, sold the house he'd shared with Vanessa, and moved into an apartment closer to me. He needed help with the kids, and I was the only family he had. We didn't talk about what had happened, about the suitcase or my decision to call the police, or whether I'd done the right thing. But the silence between us was heavy with unspoken accusations. I know this story has been intense. If you've made it this far, you're my kind of viewer. Please, before we get to the conclusion, hit that like button and subscribe. Share this video with someone who loves true crime and family drama. And comment below, did Ruth do the right thing? What would you have done? Your comments actually help this channel grow. Okay, here's how this all ends. Vanessa pled guilty. Her lawyer, a high-powered federal defender, had advised her to cooperate with authorities, provide information about her clients, and hope for a reduced sentence. She did. She gave them names, account numbers, transaction records. She testified against 3 different criminal organizations. In exchange, her sentence was reduced to 12 years, with possibility of parole after 8. The day of her sentencing, Marcus asked if I wanted to come to the courthouse with him. I said yes. We sat in the back of the courtroom and watched as Vanessa stood before the judge. She looked different than I remembered. Thinner, older. The polish and sophistication had been stripped away, leaving someone who looked tired and defeated. When the judge asked if she had anything to say, Vanessa turned and looked directly at Marcus. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry I lied to you. I'm sorry I put our family at risk. I'm sorry I wasn't the person you thought I was." She wiped her eyes. "But I need you to know, everything I felt for you and the kids was real. That was the only honest thing about me." Marcus didn't respond. He just sat there, tears running down his face, watching the woman he'd loved be led away in handcuffs. Life moved on, as it always does, even when you don't think it can. Marcus threw himself into being a single father. He was good at it. Patient, loving, present in ways that surprised even me. Emma and Lucas adjusted better than anyone expected. Children are resilient like that. We established routines. Marcus would drop the kids at my house before work. I'd take them to school, pick them up, help with homework. We'd have dinner together most nights. Marcus, the kids, and me, eating around my kitchen table, slowly rebuilding something that looked like family. Marcus and I slowly found our way back to each other too. Not all at once. It happened in small moments, like the night 3 months after the trial, when he was helping me wash dishes and said quietly, "You saved us, you know." I'd looked at him, surprised. "What?" "If you hadn't found that suitcase, if you hadn't called the police, eventually someone would have come for Vanessa, one of her clients, or the FBI, or someone worse, and they might have come for us too, for me and the kids." He set down the dish he was holding. "You stopped that from happening." "I destroyed your marriage," I whispered. "No," he said firmly. "Vanessa destroyed my marriage. You just exposed the truth." There's a difference. It was the closest we'd come to talking about it directly, and I felt something loosen in my chest, something I'd been carrying since that morning at the lake. 6 months after Vanessa was sentenced, I received a letter. It came to my lake house, not my regular address, which meant Vanessa must have remembered it specifically. The return address was FCI Danbury, the federal correctional institution in Connecticut where she was serving her time. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. I sat on my porch, the same porch where I'd watched her be arrested, and opened the envelope. "Dear Ruth, I hope this letter finds you well. I hope Emma and Lucas are thriving. I hope Marcus has found some peace. I've had a lot of time to think in here about the choices I made, about the person I became, about the life I built on lies. You were right to call the police that day. I know Marcus probably struggled with it. I know it must have caused tension between you, but you did the right thing. Here's what I never told anyone. The week before we went to your lake house, one of my clients threatened me. Said if I didn't move a payment faster, they'd make me regret it. They mentioned Marcus by name. Said they knew where Emma went to school. I panicked. I grabbed all my evidence, the passports, the account books, the cash I'd been saving in case I needed to run, and I put it in that suitcase. I was going to sink it in the lake temporarily, just until I figured out what to do. Maybe I'd retrieve it later. Maybe I'd leave it there and start over. But then you found it. And in finding it, you saved my family from the consequences of my choices. Those people would have come eventually. If not that week, then the next month or the next year. And when they did, Marcus and the kids would have been caught in the crossfire. You prevented that. I'll never get to be their mother again, not really. Even when I get out, they'll be adults. Emma will be 20, Lucas will be 17. They won't need me anymore. They probably won't want to know me, but they'll be safe. Because of you. Thank you for protecting my children when I failed to. Thank you for being the kind of grandmother, the kind of woman I could never be. With more gratitude than I can express, Vanessa. I read the letter 3 times, then folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope. The threats. The danger Marcus and the kids had been in. I'd known it intellectually, but seeing it written out in Vanessa's handwriting made it real in a way it hadn't been before. I'd been right to call the police. Not because Vanessa deserved to be punished, though she did, but because my grandchildren deserved to be safe. Emma was 10 now, and she'd started asking harder questions. One evening when I was tucking her in at my house, she said suddenly, "Grandma, why did Mom do bad things?" I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Dad says Mom made bad choices, that she helped bad people, but Mom was always nice to me and Lucas. She made us breakfast and helped with my homework and read us stories. How can someone be a good mom and a bad person at the same time? It was the question that had haunted me, too. How had Vanessa compartmentalized so completely? How had she gone from laundering money for drug cartels to making pancakes for her children without seeming to feel the contradiction? "People are complicated," I said finally. "Sometimes someone can love you very much and still make terrible decisions. Your mom loved you and Lucas more than anything, but she also made choices that put you in danger even though she didn't mean to." "Is she coming back?" Emma asked in a small voice. "Not for a long time." "Do you hate her? For what she did to Dad?" I thought about that. Did I hate Vanessa? No, I pitied her. I was angry at her choices. I was grateful she'd been stopped before those choices destroyed Marcus and the kids. But hate? No. "I don't hate her," I said honestly. "I'm sad for her, and I'm sad for you and Lucas and your dad. But I don't hate her." Emma nodded slowly, processing this. "Dad says you're a hero, that you saved us." "I just did what any grandmother would do," I said. "I protected my family. By calling the police on Mom? By making sure you and Lucas would be safe," I corrected gently. "That's what love is sometimes, Emma. Making hard choices because they're the right ones, even when they hurt." She hugged me tight. "I'm glad you're my grandma." And in that moment, I knew I'd made the right choice. 2 years after Vanessa went to prison, Marcus started dating again. Her name was Jennifer, and she was a teacher at Emma's school. She was warm, genuine, and refreshingly uncomplicated. What you saw was what you got. No hidden identities, no secret criminal enterprises. Just a woman who loved teaching, loved kids, and slowly, carefully, began to love Marcus too. The first time he brought her to the lake house, I watched them together on the dock. Marcus was laughing at something she'd said, and she was smiling at him with such open affection that it made my chest ache. This was what he deserved, what he should have had from the beginning. "You approve?" Marcus had asked me later, after Jennifer left. "I do," I said. "She seems lovely." "She is. She's easy." "Does that sound bad? I just mean, there's no drama, no secrets. She tells me what she's thinking. It's such a relief after—" He trailed off. "After Vanessa. The woman who'd been a walking lie." "That's not bad at all," I assured him. "That's called healthy." "The kids like her," he added. "Emma especially. Says she wants Jennifer to teach her class next year." I smiled. "That's a good sign." Marcus looked out at the lake, at the spot where I'd surfaced with evidence that changed all our lives. "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you ever regret it, calling the police?" I'd asked myself that question 1,000 times over the past 2 years. Had I done the right thing? Should I have handled it differently? Should I have tried to talk to Vanessa first or to Marcus? "No," I said finally. "I don't regret it. I regret that it had to happen. I regret that Vanessa made the choices she made. I regret that you got hurt and the kids got hurt. But calling the police, stopping her before someone worse did, no, I don't regret that." Marcus nodded. "Neither do I. Not anymore." I sold the lake house 3 years after Vanessa's arrest. It sounds like surrender, and maybe it was. But every time I looked at that dock, I saw her dragging that suitcase. Every time I swam in the lake, I thought about diving down to find evidence of her crimes. The sanctuary I'd built after Tom died had become a crime scene, and I couldn't live with that anymore. I bought a smaller place on a different lake, 2 hours north, started over. New view, new dock, new memories to build. Marcus understood. "It's not the same place anymore," he agreed. "Too much has happened there." But before I sold it, I did one last thing. I went down to the dock where I'd witnessed Vanessa's secret that morning. I sat there as the sun rose, just like I had that day, and I let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. Anger at Vanessa for the lies, grief for the family we could have been, relief that Emma and Lucas were safe. Pride that I'd had the courage to do the hard thing, and forgiveness, for Vanessa, maybe, but mostly for myself. I'd spent 3 years wondering if I'd done the right thing, questioning whether I should have handled it differently, carrying the weight of Marcus's initial anger and the kids' confusion. But sitting there on that dock, watching the water turn gold with sunrise, I finally let it go. I had done the right thing, not the easy thing, not the painless thing, but the right thing. And that had to be enough. 5 years after she went to prison, Vanessa called. She was allowed limited phone calls, and she'd saved one to reach out. Marcus had refused all contact. He wasn't ready, might never be ready, but Emma had been asking about her mother. Emma was 13 now, old enough to understand more of the truth. Old enough to make her own decision about whether she wanted a relationship with her mother. She'd asked if she could write to Vanessa. Marcus had been conflicted but ultimately agreed. "She deserves to know her mother," he'd said, even though it clearly hurt him. Now Vanessa wanted to talk to me. "Ruth?" Her voice sounded small over the prison phone line, older, tired. "Hello, Vanessa. Thank you for allowing Emma to write to me. Her letters, they're the only thing keeping me sane in here. She needs to know you," I said. "Even if she doesn't understand everything you did, she needs to know her mother exists and cares about her. Ruth, I need to tell you something. The FBI came to see me again last month." My stomach dropped. "Why?" "They found more of my clients, worse ones than they knew about before. And those people, some of them are still out there, still looking for their money." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to be careful. Marcus needs to be careful. They might not know about my family, but they could find out. They could come looking." "Are you threatening us?" My voice went cold. "God, no, Ruth, I'm warning you. I'm telling you because I owe you that much. Just be alert. Make sure Marcus varies his routes to work. Make sure the kids' school knows not to release them to anyone but family. Make sure—" "We'll be careful," I interrupted. "We've been careful for 5 years." There was a long silence. Then, "You saved their lives, you know, that morning at the lake. If you hadn't found that suitcase, if you hadn't called the police, those people would have found me eventually. And they would have hurt Marcus and the kids to get to me." "I know," I said quietly. "You told me, in your letter. I think about it every day, about how close I came to destroying them, about how you stopped that from happening. Vanessa, why are you really calling?" Another pause. "Because Emma's letter mentioned that Marcus is getting married to someone named Jennifer, and I wanted to say that I'm glad. I'm glad he found someone good, someone who won't put him in danger." "He's happy," I confirmed. "The kids love her. She's good for all of them." "Good." I could hear tears in her voice. "That's good. That's what he deserves." "What do you deserve, Vanessa?" I asked. After everything you did? Exactly what I got, she said without hesitation. Prison, consequences, the loss of my family. I deserve all of it. The phone connection warned us we had 1 minute remaining. Ruth, Vanessa said quickly, tell Emma. Tell her I'm proud of her. Tell her to keep being brave. Tell her. Her voice broke. Tell her I love her, even if I can't be there. Tell her that was real. I will, I promised. And Ruth, thank you for everything, for protecting them, for being there when I couldn't be, for being the grandmother they deserve. The line went dead. I sat holding the phone for a long time, thinking about choices and consequences and the complicated nature of redemption. Vanessa would serve 8 years total if she made parole. She'd be 42 when she got out, still young enough to rebuild a life if she chose to. But her relationship with Marcus was gone. Emma might maintain some contact, but it would never be what it could have been. Lucas barely remembered her. That was the cost of her choices. And somehow, knowing she understood that, knowing she accepted responsibility, made it easier to carry forward. Marcus married Jennifer on a Saturday in September, 6 years after Vanessa went to prison. The wedding was small, intimate, just family and close friends at a vineyard upstate. Emma was a bridesmaid, Lucas was the ring bearer, and I sat in the front row crying happy tears. This was what healing looked like, not forgetting what happened, not pretending Vanessa had never existed, but moving forward anyway, building something new on the foundation of hard lessons learned. During his vows, Marcus said, Jennifer, you've taught me what real love looks like, not the fantasy version, not the perfect Instagram version, but the real thing. The kind that's built on honesty and trust and showing up every day, even when it's hard. I saw Emma wipe her eyes. She understood what he wasn't saying, that her mother had given him the fantasy, and it had nearly destroyed him. At the reception, Jennifer pulled me aside. Ruth, I need to tell you something, she said. Marcus told me everything, about Vanessa, about the lake, about what you did. And I just want to say, thank you for protecting him, for protecting Emma and Lucas, for being brave enough to do the hard thing. I only did what any mother would do, I said. No, Jennifer corrected gently. You did what most people would be too afraid to do. You risked your relationship with your son to keep him safe. That takes extraordinary courage. I hugged her. This woman who'd chosen to love my complicated, wounded son and his equally wounded children. Take care of them, I whispered. Always, she promised. That night, after the wedding, I sat on the balcony of my new lake house and wrote a letter. Dear Vanessa, Marcus got married today to a wonderful woman named Jennifer who teaches 3rd grade and makes the kids laugh. Emma was beautiful in her bridesmaid dress. Lucas only dropped the rings once, which we're calling a victory. It was the wedding Marcus deserved to have the first time. No secrets, no lies. Just 2 people who genuinely know each other choosing to build a life together. I'm writing to tell you that I forgive you. Not because what you did was forgivable. Not because the pain you caused wasn't real, but because holding on to anger for 6 years has been exhausting, and I'm choosing to let it go. You made terrible choices. You put my son and grandchildren in danger. You built a life on lies, but you also loved them in your broken, complicated way, and in the end you accepted responsibility for what you'd done. That matters. Emma asks about you sometimes. She reads your letters. She's trying to understand how someone can be both the mother she remembers and the criminal she's learned about. It's a hard thing for a 13-year-old to process. I tell her that people are complicated, that loving someone doesn't mean excusing what they've done, that you can hold space for both the good memories and the painful truth. She's a smart kid. She'll figure it out. Marcus doesn't talk about you anymore. I think he's made his peace, in his own way. He's happy now, really happy. And that's what I wanted for him all along. You asked me once to take care of Emma and Lucas. I have. I will. They're safe, they're loved, and they're becoming remarkable young people. That's my promise to you. I'll keep them safe. I'll be the grandmother they need. I'll fill the space you left as best I can, but they'll always know about you, the good and the bad, because that's their story, and they deserve to know all of it. I hope prison is teaching you something. I hope you're using this time to figure out who you want to be when you get out. I hope you find a way to build an honest life, even if my family isn't part of it. Take care of yourself, Vanessa. Ruth. I sealed the letter, addressed it to FCI Danbury, and placed it in my outgoing mail. Then I sat back and looked out at my new lake, at the water reflecting moonlight, at the dock where no secrets were buried. This lake was clean. This lake was mine. And on its shores, I was building a life free from the weight of other people's lies. Emma graduated high school with honors. She wanted to study criminal justice. I want to understand why people do what they do, she explained at her graduation party. Why they make bad choices, how we can stop them before they hurt people. I knew she was thinking of her mother, of the unanswered questions that still haunted her. Your mom would be proud, I said. Emma looked at me, surprised. You think so? I do. You're taking something painful and turning it into purpose. That takes strength. Vanessa had been released on parole 2 years earlier. She'd moved to Seattle, as far from us as she could get while staying in the continental U.S. She worked at a nonprofit helping formerly incarcerated women find housing and employment. She sent Christmas cards. Emma responded. Lucas didn't. Marcus threw his away unopened. That was okay. Everyone healed differently. Lucas was 15 now, more interested in video games and basketball than his mother's crimes. He barely remembered her, and that was probably for the best. Marcus and Jennifer had a baby girl. They named her Hope. 2 on the nose? Marcus had joked when they told me. Perfect, I'd said, crying as I held my new granddaughter, this child who represented new beginnings, fresh starts, a family built on honesty. As for me, I was 72 now, still healthy, still active, still swimming in my lake every morning. But I didn't dive anymore. Once was enough for a lifetime. People ask me sometimes, when the story came up, and it did because small-town gossip never really dies, whether I regretted making that call to the sheriff. I always said the same thing. I regret that it had to happen, but I don't regret doing what was necessary to protect my family. Because that's what love is, sometimes. Not the easy things, not the comfortable things, but the necessary things, the hard things, the things that cost you something, but save the people you love. That morning at the lake, standing at my window with a cup of coffee, watching my daughter-in-law drag a suitcase full of secrets to the water, that was the moment everything changed. I could have looked away, pretended I hadn't seen, chosen willful blindness, but I didn't. I dove into cold water. I uncovered the truth. I made the call, and in doing so, I saved my son and grandchildren from a danger they never even knew existed. Was it worth it? The pain, the family drama, the years of tension? Yes. 1,000 times yes. Because Emma is safe. Lucas is safe. Marcus is happy. Hope is growing up in a home without secrets. And I can look at myself in the mirror every morning, knowing I did the right thing, even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. That's what grandmothers do. We protect our families, even from themselves. If you're reading this, if you've been in a situation where you had to choose between keeping the peace and exposing a dangerous truth, I want you to know something. You're not responsible for other people's choices. You're only responsible for your own. I didn't make Vanessa launder money. I didn't make her lie to Marcus. I didn't make her put my grandchildren in danger. She made those choices. All I did was refuse to be complicit in the lie. That's not betrayal. That's not cruelty. That's not breaking up a family. That's protecting a family from destruction. If you saw someone dragging a suitcase to a lake at dawn, would you investigate? Would you dive in? Would you call the police? I hope you would. Because sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. And sometimes being a hero means being willing to be the villain in someone else's story. Vanessa probably hates me. Maybe she always will. Maybe one day when Emma is older, she'll blame me for breaking up her parents' marriage. But they're alive. They're safe. They're building honest lives. And I can live with being the bad guy if that's the cost of their safety. So yes, I saw my daughter-in-law put a suitcase in the lake. And yes, what I found inside made me call the police. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because that's what love looks like sometimes. Not pretty, not easy, not comfortable, just necessary. And in the end, necessary is enough. Thank you so much for sticking with Ruth's story until the very end. If this story made you think, made you feel something, or made you realize you'd have the courage to do the hard thing too, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I share stories like this every single week. Real family drama, tough choices, and people finding the courage to do what's right even when it costs them everything. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think Ruth was right to call the police? Or should she have confronted Vanessa first? I read every single comment, and I love hearing your perspectives. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone facing a tough choice, someone protecting their family, someone wondering if they're doing the right thing, share this video with them. Remember, sometimes being a hero means being willing to make the hard call, even when everyone else thinks you're the villain. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next story.